Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's episode of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys making some time to check the video out and spend some time with me. And I think you're going to be happy you did, because I'm going to show you guys my favorite Ned rig hack. This hack will definitely help you guys get more bites on a Ned rig. In addition to that, we're going to have sort of like a little mini tutorial, because we're getting, at the time of filming this video, which is sort of getting into middle March, we're getting into prime Ned rig season. I think that Ned rigs work the best when the water temperatures in the 50s and the 60s. So probably the next couple months, we're going to have some really good Ned rig fishing, get you guys all set up and prepared for it in today's video. Also, guys, I'd just like to extend a quick invitation before we get started to please consider hitting that subscribe button. We're really pushing hard to try to get to that 150,000 subscriber mark, and it's free and easy to do so. That'd be much appreciated. And also, guys, anybody interested in booking an on-the-water lesson with me, you can do that by going to my Facebook page, Randy Blaukat, Professional Angler. Just shoot me a private message and I'll give you the info for that. So much appreciated. Okay, guys, I've been fishing Ned rigs many years. Again, like a lot of different techniques in the country: square bill crankbaits, jerkbait fishing, wiggle wart fishing. A lot of it originated here around where I live in the Ozarks. And, you know, this has been catching fish forever and will continue to catch fish forever, because it's a very subtle, very natural presentation. And for most people buy those Z-Man Ned rigs already rigged up, and they're about, 2.5 or 3 inches long. But I'm going to show you guys how to not only save money, but do this little hack on it that's really going to help you out. And also, guys, my eyes are all puffed up, man. We've got some major pollen on the ground right now in the air, so I'm like all swole up from this pollen this morning. It seems like, I don't know, if once you get older, that happens. Like, I remember when I was younger, I never got these allergies or anything. So it's like the last 10 years they kicked in. So something you got to look forward to. Okay, the tip I'm going to give you is on your soft plastic stick baits. Now, I'm going to be talking about the Zoom Slinky, but Yamamoto Sinker works just as good. When you're using a soft plastic stick bait and it gets chewed up, don't throw it away. Save it, because this is what I use for my Ned rig baits here. I think it's the best Ned rig bait that you can make is an old soft plastic stick bait. You don't have to buy, the special Ned rig baits. Just save your soft plastic stick baits, and that's what I use with them. So I'm going to show you a little bit about the hack, and then we're going to get into a little bit more details. Most Ned rigs, and I've cut this one down here at about 3 inches long or so. Most Ned rigs are set up about like this, about a 2.5 or 3 inch long bait, just like that. And it's like, it'll catch fish, don't get me wrong. But I gotta credit where credit is due. This hack I'm going to show you was from Luke Clausen, one of my fellow Bridgeford Foods Pro team members. And Luke told me about try a half a Ned. He calls it a half a Ned. And what you do is, and I actually make it shorter than Luke did, is take your 2.5 or 3 inch long, stick bait, and guys, cut it down to like an inch long. Just a little bitty nub like that. And it's almost like, looks like a little grub. And I'm going to show you how to rig this. You got to come through real careful. You're coming through almost the whole bait with it. And it's got like a little bitty insect here. Look at that, just a little bitty grub minnow. And guys, I'm telling you right now, this simple reduction in it, you cannot believe how many more bites you get, and you don't sacrifice size. It's like, I've caught 20-pound bags of smallmouth on this thing, on the little bitty half a Ned, big spotted bass here at Table Rock Lake. This is how I fish a Ned rig most all the time. It's only about an inch long. Just cut it down, nice and simple. You can see that down there. It's just some, I don't know, it's just something the size of a little crawdad or the size of a little minnow or something like that. But try the half a Ned. Okay, now some other stuff we're going to talk about. Let's talk just some general stuff that's really helped me in my, Ned rig fishing. Is the size, is the head size. You always want to go light. Most of the time, guys, I'll stay with like a 1/16 of an ounce like this, maybe even a 32nd. The slow fall on that Ned rig, guys, is so critical in the springtime of the year. So try to get by with the lightest head that you can get by with. In fact, I prefer the 1/32 ounce. Just a little bitty tiny head. The fall rate is so critical, because when you pick that Ned rig up off the bottom, there's something about the fall rate on the thing that is really critical in terms of getting strikes. So rig this back up here. Like anything else, when you're fishing any type of a jig or Texas rig, fall rates are really critical with it. But that fall rate on it, you just got a nice little natural fall weight. And when you pick it up, it also falls down really slow, just super, super subtle. Okay, another thing with colors, I pretty much use just a couple different colors here. Now, my favorite is any type of a natural or green pumpkin like this. This is obviously going to be your most consistent producer. But if you get some type of a low light day or early in the mornings, for example, let's say it's cloudy or rainy or something like that, low light day, guys, try a June bug. June bug, for whatever reason, it's even in clear water. This thing will work even in clear water good. This is a really good color to use. Also, if you can get them to bite June bug, you can usually get a little bit better quality fish on it. A lot of people don't fish a little June bug, but those are my two primary ones, guys. A June bug and a green pumpkin will work really good with it. Okay, the next thing is the line size and how you work it. One of the things about Ned rig fishing, it's all about finesse fishing, and especially if you're using that light head. So don't ever use anything over 6 pound test. I use 4 and 6 pound test, Seaguar and Vizex all the time. If I'm fishing a really light head, like the 1/32 ounce, and I'm fishing more open banks, let's say for example, I'm fishing clay points or gravel points where there's not much cover, I always go to 4 pound test with a really light sinker. There's just something about that diminutive downsize approach that gets more bites. But if I'm fishing a little bit more snaggy stuff, say a little bit more rocky bottom or riprap banks or something like that, then I'll go to 6 pound test. But don't ever feel that you have to go over 6 pound test, because if you go to 8 pound test, your casting distance is going to be decreased and your feel and the way that the bait actually falls is going to be affected a little bit. So I'm going to say most of the time, I probably use the 6 pound test about 75% of the time and the 4 pound test about 25% of the time. And also when you're working a Ned rig, there's not really a bad way to work a Ned rig, but the main thing is you want to keep it close to the bottom and don't make high hops with it. So most of the time when I throw it out there, I'm just sort of shaking it like that, and then I'll drag it a little bit. Throw it out there, just shake it, maybe hop it just a little bit where it comes a couple inches off the bottom, and just drag it. That's the main thing with it, is don't overwork it. You want this presentation to stay subtle. You want it to stay close to the bottom. And also when you get a strike with it, even though this Ned rig has an open hook on it, I found that open hook baits, you will lose a lot of fish if you don't set the hook correctly or have the right timing. So when you cast it out there and you're working that bait, and then all of a sudden, a lot of times you can't even feel a strike. A lot of times you'll be working it and you feel some resistance, and then your line starts swimming out. Don't get in a big hurry to set the hook. Just throw it out there, you're working it, and then all of a sudden you see your line moving or you get a bite. Just let it move for maybe 3 or 4 feet. Don't get in a big hurry, and just start reeling. Just start reeling and pulling back on your rod. Because you don't need, with a little bitty wire hook like this, you don't need to set the hook on it. Just keep reeling and keep the tension on it, keep it coming back to the boat, and you very seldom lose anything like that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the type of areas you want to fish a Ned rig in the springtime of the year. You fish the Ned rig pretty much the same places that you'd fish like a shaky head or any type of bait like that. Without a doubt, my favorite structures are secondary points, flat or secondary points. A lot of these fish, what they do when that water temperature is in the 50s and 60s, is they'll stage on those secondary points before moving back into the coves to spawn. So my favorite way to catch them is just go pick out 2 or 3 major creek arms in the lake you're fishing and just get on those secondary points leading back into all those coves and fish that, specifically in the month of March when that water temperature is in the 50s. And the depth range that you fish is anywhere between, say, 5 to 20 foot of water, depending upon your clarity. If your water visibility is over 4 foot in clarity, you want to probe down into that 20 foot zone, because even in the springtime of year, if you got real clear water, and especially if you have a mixed species lake that has smallmouth and spotted bass, excuse me, those fish will spawn really deep. And they'll get really deep, even right before spawning. So work that Ned rig down to 20 foot if you have over 4 foot of visibility. And if you've got sort of that 2 to 4 foot visibility, just experiment a little bit, just 5 to 10 to 15 foot, depending upon where the fish are going to be. On the windier, low light days, they're going to be up a little shallower, and on the bright, sunny days with not much wind, they may be, out there a little bit deeper. And also, don't be afraid to move back into the flatter coves as that water temperature gets back in the 60s. So as that water gets in the 60s and those fish get focused on spawning, you can get in those spawning coves. And let's say, for example, and again, I'm not encouraging people to catch spawning fish. I mean, I'm not really, I don't promote that. But if you get into an area where you're seeing some bass nesting on the bank, visibly bedding on there, back out maybe 10 or 15 feet off the bank and start casting out into that sort of that 5 to 10 foot zone. And a lot of times those pre and those post spawn bass will sort of sulk and hang out in that little bit deeper water in those spawning coves, and a Ned rig is a really, really good way to catch them with that. But it's probably, Ned rig's probably, guys, one of the most user-friendly baits for somebody that doesn't fish very much. It's because you don't have to do much for it. You throw it on a spinning rod, so it's not hard to cast, and usually you're casting it into somewhat open water, like on points or banks. You're not trying to cast it around targets or anything. So it's just a really good way to catch them. And without a doubt, it's probably the #1 bait in the springtime of year to get a lot of bites on. When you have a lake that has a decent population of fish in it, and you hit it right with a Ned rig, you're looking at a 50 fish a day being very common. I mean, if I took any one of you guys down like to Table Rock Lake in mid-April or something like that, it wouldn't be uncommon for us to catch 50 fish. Now, a lot of them wouldn't be keepers. They might be 13 or 14 inchers, but it's still a heck of a lot of fun. And the thing about it is, even though it catches a lot of different size of fish on largemouth and spotted bass, if you have smallmouth in the lake you're fishing, a little bitty Ned rig, that half a Ned rig, guys, will catch the biggest smallmouth in the lake. The biggest, I'll tell you a little story about the half a Ned. I was, Owen, my son Owen, when he was like 7 or 8 years old, we went up, I had a FLW tournament up at Lake St. Clair in Michigan. And he went out practicing with me, and he was just a kid, and he had his games in the boat with him, and he wanted to fish. So I was fishing this big giant grass flat in about 6 or 7 foot of water, and the grass was sort of scattered out there. And I put him on a Ned rig because I was throwing a jerk bait. And I figured Ned rig would be the best way to get a bite. So about every 20 or 30 minutes, he'd make a cast straight out the back of the boat, and he'd only cast out there like 30 feet or something. And he'd just drag it. He wouldn't do anything about it. And all of a sudden he'd go, and something feels funny, and he starts reeling, and there'd be a giant smallmouth jumping out there that has Ned rig. To make a long story short, guys, he caught a limit of smallmouth on that little bitty half a Ned rig that weighed 27 pounds out the back of the boat. And I tried to duplicate it. I mean, it's like, God, Owen, what are you doing? I sit there and I'd watch him, and I'd throw my Ned rig out behind the boat and just drag it, and I couldn't catch one, but he would just stay with it. He wouldn't give up on it, and he just caught a freaking giant, bag of smallmouth on that thing. So anyway, guys, a few tips that I use. Like I said, the best thing I can do is don't think you got to waste your money on buying the Ned rig baits or something like that. Just save your old Zlinkies or Cincos, cut them off to varying lengths, and give that a try. Now, one final thing, I'm not saying that the little half a Ned like this is the answer all the time. I mean, sometimes the fish want a little bit larger profile. So let me give you a little example on that. Don't just completely forget about like the 2.5 and 3 inch Ned rig, because if you've got a situation where, let's say, the fish are aggressive and it's windy and cloudy, maybe there's some, the conditions are conducive to where the fish just are biting really good. If they're biting really good and you don't have to finesse them out and you don't have to like work hard, then go to the bigger size, because the bigger size is a little bit easier to fish. It probably will, on average, draw a little bit larger fish from largemouth and spotted bass. So just mix them up. But guys, do not forget about the half a Ned, because the half a Ned will get you a limit of fish really quick. So hope it helps out, guys. We'll talk later.